this is the second chapter of Scar's backstory. Not directly after. This is a while after. 4,000 credits? I can buy a blaster for that much! Scar stared incredulously at the vendor who held the emitter matrix in his hands. He shrugged and said that's the way it's going to be, and you're going to have to accept that. Her earbuds barely translated his language, not because it was so complex, because it was so barren and basic. She could barely get the meaning out of what he was saying. The large alien vendor said you can take it or leave it. And she sighed and looked back at the money she had. She did not have 4,000 credits. She'd been making money trading, but that was going to be at least another month worth of trading to get that much. And she had other things she needed to be doing. A voice from the side said, "Oh, an emitter matrix. Someone could get into trouble with those. You know, they put those in lightsabers." She looked to the side to a man who was shopping at the vendor next to her. He was human and wore a large overshirt and baggy pants. She felt like she had maybe seen him before, but disregarded him and tried to figure out what she could do. If she had anything of value that she could trade, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a list, looking through her valuables to see if there was anything she could possibly trade for this thing, because she needed this. This was the last piece. The man to the side of her picked up a fruit and began inspecting it. He said, "You know, you shouldn't be getting in danger. Little girls like you should stay home. You shouldn't be traveling places like Coruscant or Roshar." She looked at him. That's why she recognized him. She'd seen him before. What was his name? She couldn't remember his name. And he set down the fruit and picked up another one and reached into a pocket. There was a green glow underneath his underneath his overshirt. And he pulled out a pile of cred sticks and paid the vendor for his fruit. As he began to eat, Scar made a split decision, and reaching out with her iron, she pulled the cred sticks from his hand and grabbed them in her own hand, slammed them down on the table with hers, and grabbed the emitter matrix out of the vendor's hand and sprinted off into the crowd. She turned back to glance and see the vendor slap his hand down on the cred sticks. He wasn't going to lose the money and the emitter matrix. And the man shouted after her, but she was gone in the crowd. She wove her way around another street and got up on top of the building to look back over the spot where she'd just been, and saw that the man was still standing there eating his fruit and watching the direction where she'd gone in the crowd. He finally shook his head and turned, disappearing through a portal. He was going to be dangerous. Darren! That was his name. Darren. She traveled back herself, stopping by Earth and before heading to Roshar. And back in the rooms that she'd been given, she settled down into a nook. The Alethi were so austere. She unzipped her pocket to pull out a pillow and rested on that as she pulled out the pieces that she'd been gathering for the last few weeks. Pulled out the emitter matrix. Hopefully this would get it to work. She began to fiddle with the pieces, putting them all in order, but it didn't quite work, and she tried rearranging it all again. All the while thinking about Darren and that green glow that she'd seen. That connected to the green that Grant had talked about, the Profithians. They were in this together. Darren was going to be more of a threat than she realized. Oh gosh. She felt completely in over her head. She'd gotten used to traveling. She'd gotten some good stuff, but there was still so much. She couldn't do this alone. She finally managed to... she put the pieces together one last time, and a bright blue blade shot out from the handle. And she looked at it. It was completely captivating. She'd gotten it to work. Then, holding the lightsaber out from her, she gave it a few swishes, making sure not to cut anything as she went. This was going to be a help, for sure. The individual pieces themselves had been hard enough to get through. Getting a whole lightsaber on its own would have been nearly impossible. The kyber crystal alone had taken her a lot to get through. But now she had this taken care of. She was going to be able to help Grant, but she needed help. She needed someone else.